I'm going to demonstrate how to translate this three-dimensional cone photo into a two-dimensional vector illustration using only the Polyline tool in Google Drawings. The first thing you want to do is assess the image and try to make some plans. First of all, we want to think about, of course, the colors or the number of tones involved in this. So this is a grayscale image, so I'm going to stick to whites, grays, and blacks. I notice this strong highlight coming down here, so that's going to be my brightest. The shadow, of course, is the darkest area. And then when I'm looking at the cone itself, I notice that the cone appears darker than the base it's sitting on. So I might have one, two, three, four different levels of tonality in there. The more you do, the more nuanced you can get with your detail. But let's start there and see what that looks like. The second thing that you want to plan for is thinking about working from large areas to more detailed areas. So this little white stripe here is relatively small in the image. So I'm going to actually think about doing that last. I'll start with the base or the table surface that the cone is sitting on, and then probably do the wall area behind it, because then I can put the cone right over top of that. In fact, I might even do the shadow first because the cone appears to be kind of blocking that shadow area. So let's get started. We'll select the Polyline tool from the drop-down menu. And we're going to begin by just tracing right over top of the photo so we can get our proportions accurate. I'm not asking you to free draw this. So I'll find a corner, click, and remember with your Polyline tool, every time you click, it creates an anchor point. If you hold Shift as you pull down, it'll keep it perfectly straight. Now you notice I'm not totally precisely lined up with that edge, and that's okay. It's pretty darn close. And again, I'm still holding Shift because those are all straight edges. And once I connect, it puts this color fill into it. And I'm going to just use my select tool. And again, hold Shift as I do, and I can just slide that over. By holding Shift, it keeps it from moving around on you. It'll keep it straight up and down. Now I decided that this base was maybe my second lightest value, and as you can see, I've got a pretty broad range here. So I think I'll keep white for my highlight, and instead of making it a real subtle white, I think I'll go for light gray 1. Let's see what that ends up looking like. And again, I want to turn off the border. So I'll select the pencil icon for the border and change that to transparent. So you'll have to do that for each one. Now let's switch back over to the Polyline tool. And then now let's do the dark wall here. So again, I'll line up, click to define my points, bring it across, and again hold Shift to move it over. You'll notice here that it's made it the same color as my last one, and that's not going to work very well, so I need to go ahead and fill it. And I'm going to make this a very darkest shade. Now I notice these aren't really black, so I'm going to make it a very dark gray. And there's a little gap in there that I can fix now or fix later. To keep it proportional, I'll stretch the corner just a smidge, and I can bring that in to make it match up. I'll show you how to make even more nuanced distinctions here in just a sec. So there's the wall and the floor. I'll next draw the shadow. And one of the biggest challenges is remembering to toggle between your different tools. Now I could try to work my way around this, but instead I'm going to just go ahead and bring the shadow in here a little bit behind this. And I'm going to zoom in so that I can better see this bottom edge here. And I'm going to make smaller little clicks to give me that, that rounded element. And then I'll finish it up here. So I'm zooming in. You can do it through your zoom in and zoom out option. On a Mac, it's Command Option plus or minus. On your Chromebook, it'll be Control Option plus or minus to move in and out. Now you notice that that's not accurate, but I'm going to cover that up with the cone. So that's why I'm making it a little larger than it should. Again, I want to hold Shift and switch over to the Select key and move this across here into the approximate position. And now I want to, again, shade it so that it's the same color, and I'll get rid of the outline. Okay, now let's make this cone. Again, switch back over to the Polyline tool. I'll start at the top, and I'm going to make it all just gray to begin with, and then go back in and add my shadows. I'm going to zoom in again here so that I can get the bottom edge of this just a little more curved and precise here. And then I'll bring it back up to connect. Now you notice again that it filled it that same color as last time. I can go ahead and make it a little darker than my base. So let's do dark gray one. And I'll zoom back out, switch over, hold Shift. And you'll see here now that by covering up that shadow, that it gives the illusion that it's sitting on top of that. Then I want to do the shadow that's on the cone and the highlight, and we'll see how that looks. So switch back over to the Polyline tool, and again I'll zoom in a little bit this time so that I can be a bit more precise. I'm going to come down along that edge. And there's a pretty strong line here where this shadow starts and stops, isn't there? And connect back. Again, I want to fill that to be dark with no outline, no border. I'll switch over to my Move tool and then drag it into position on my screen. And you can see that I might need to tweak that just a little bit and try to get that a little more precisely in place there. And then we'll finish up here with the highlight. It looks like that edge got a little wonky, so I want to fix that just a bit. And again, let's Polyline tool, and I'm going to zoom in to do this white area. So this bright white highlight that kind of runs down most of the width of this cone. You can tell it's hard for me to talk and concentrate on my lines at the same time. And I'll make this again very bright white and remove the edge, switch over and drag it into position here. So that's Not terrible. If I wanted to make it even a little more refined, I certainly could. One way to tell if you're doing a pretty good job is to really zoom down and make it small. And if it looks pretty good at thumbnail level, then that's a pretty good sign. So that's looking not terrible. Obviously, it's a lot more simplified than the photo. We're not going to get it to look exactly the same. One last thing is that I want to clean up this edge. Look at how that kind of dips down a little bit there and makes that kind of a corner instead of a nice smooth curve. So I'm going to zoom in on this area here, and let's get that so we can really see what's going on. Now, if you double click on the shape that you want to edit, you'll notice that it shows you your points. So I'm going to just adjust that point there a little bit that was making that harsh curve and bring that up ever so slightly. And let's see if that did the trick. So that looks much better. And there's a pretty decent approximation of a 4-level approach. Now, if you wanted to go in and add a shade of gray that was just a little lighter than that one, then that would also help to further make the cone look a little bit more rounded.